Steve, tell us about the people with the money.
Well, first of all, let me just say I agree strongly with the points that Nick made. I do think that you're quite. I do think that the period that we're in is going to be critically kind of important. I think potentially the next 6 months are going to be the defining period of this Parliament, as people discover what the cuts really mean. I think the CSR was only ever going to sketch out the kind of big picture. That big picture is going to be coloured in by lots of individual public bodies, local authorities, NHS trusts, Whitehall departments, setting their budgets and showing us what the cuts really mean. I think that the public are probably rather poorly prepared for that. You, Ben, have normally got a slide that shows that most people think the cuts have already happened. I think people are going to discover that the cuts haven't already happened. They're also going to discover that that kind of Daily Mail picture that this is all going to be solved by a bit of restraint on top pay and the abolition of gold-plated pensions and scrapping the audit commission and MPs not being allowed to travel in taxis or whatever. They're going to discover that actually this goes a bit further than that. And I think those the public reactions to the cuts will really test the political parties. I think it will be particularly interesting not only to see how the coalition and the two parties in government are tested by this, but it will also, I think, be very interesting to see where this takes the Labour policy to. I think it's going to be very tempting for Labour to become the defenders of public services, the opponents of all cuts. If that coincides, as seems likely, with Labour beginning to get a bit of a kind of resurgence in local elections, we may get back to something like the 1980s, where central government wanted X and the role of local government was to oppose X. Just then to skip on, though, I think for me there is a big issue that I don't feel there's much discussion about at the moment. Perhaps inevitably we're all obsessed by this kind of transitional period, how we get from current level of public spending down to a lower level and deal with the deficit and so on and so forth. But for me, within that, there lurks a big question about the sort of the new normal, because I think we've all been complicit in designing a set of public services that do a great job, providing we pour in 2 or 3% growth funding every year, or if you're in the NHS, 5 or 6% growth funding in every year. And I think one of the big kind of root cause problems really that we're dealing with here is that model is unsustainable. So I think there's a big question for us, and I'm assuming there are significant numbers of public managers in this audience. I think there's a big question, a big challenge for all of us politicians and public managers about how we design public services that are really comfortable to operate on zero growth funding, real terms flat funding year on year. I think
local government have been saying it's been making 2 or 3% efficiency savings every year for as long as I can remember.
Well, the world's full of organisations that can provide you with the great story in terms of their efficiency savings. But if you look at the spending of those organisations over the period, strangely enough, the trend is strongly upward. So I think there is a huge challenge for us here. I think within that, we clearly need to create, in a sense, a new kind of culture in the public services, which is about being passionate about being more efficient, passionate about delivering value for money, passionate about spending less rather than more money.
Okay, thank you.